Good day, good evening, or good morning, depending on where you're from. You could have been anywhere in the world, but you're here with me, DB. Haha. All right, I'm just having too much fun, y'all. Welcome to another episode of Pelicans Daily, presented by Fan Arch. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe. I'm your host, Dylan Bruton, here to bring you some Pelicans news. So, as we all know, a couple days ago, a report came out that has basically contradicted everything that I've been saying so far in my brief run with y'all about, who's going to stay and who's going to go, who's untouchable, XYZ. And basically, nobody on this Pelicans roster is untouchable. Not a soul. Nobody. Word to Key Sweat. Nobody. You know where I'm going. So, some interesting trades now have been popping up, some different scenarios, some different ideas. And there was a multitude of them that I was interested in and felt like, hey, let me present to y'all what y'all think, you know what I'm saying, as the fans. Now, with all these trades, it just kind of comes down to the logistical kind of understanding of team fit, cap, salary cap, and what that means moving forth. But I found all these trade ideas to be particularly interesting at the very least, you know what I'm saying? Nothing that was earth shattering, nothing that was, groundbreaking, but very interesting, needless to say. And obviously, the draft is now officially about 24 to 23 days, depending on where you at, maybe even less, just all depends on where you at. So there's going to be a lot of trade talk. There's going to be a lot of ideas that are going to be thrown around. There's going to be much speculation. And as we all know with speculation, right? Speculation is just, another way for more dialogue to be produced and for more questions to be asked, more things to wonder about. So the first trade that I saw that was very interesting, and I got to give a special shout out because this is a homie of mine. We met several years ago at the Black Sports Business Symposium, and he be doing his thing on LinkedIn. But my guy, Paris Sharkey, I'm gonna send you this video. Don't worry when it pops out. You know what I'm saying? Just got to give you the shout out though. And this was via the Memphis Grizzlies Sports Illustrated site. And it was a interesting trade that was suggested by a Twitter user known as AO. I can't even read my own handwriting. That's bad. But AOS at Grizz, and his name is Alessio, so we're gonna call him just Alessio. That's what his mama named him. But a very interesting trade. Now, I would be a little bit hurt, but I'm not the one making decisions, for one, and two, nobody is untouchable. So we have to look at things honestly. Now, there's gonna be a recurring bit of names, so just be prepared. Just be prepared. This episode is going to be a recurring bit of names, so vibe with me, walk with me. So the Grizzlies would give up Desmond Bane, Vince Williams Jr., and a 2026 first round pick, and we would give up Trey Murphy, the third, and Herb Jones. Yeah, that's the only thing. With this trade especially, it's like, oh, double whammy. Not just one blow to the chest, but another one. You know what I'm saying? But, again, no one is untouchable, so we have to have these kind of conversations. I don't want to, but we have to look at things with no emotion and realistically. Now, this user, he put the trade through a trade builder on one of those websites where you can do that, and I think it's an interesting trade, needless to say. Now, I feel like a trade like this would hinge and depend on what happens with CJ McCollum, because in a way, both playing style wise and contractually, Desmond Bane and CJ McCollum would in a sort kind of cancel each other out. There's similarities in their game, and there's similarities in how much they're going to be expected to be paid. But Desmond Bane is younger than CJ McCollum, and Desmond Bane for the last 3 years has been over 20-point scorer on very efficient shooting from the field and from three. And he's only 26, 27, I believe. Yeah, he's like 26, 27. So there still is ceiling and growth for him. Vince Williams Jr. is 24, reliable role player off the bench for those Grizzlies, good defender. And then this draft class next year, you think this draft class is nice, and it is, but wait till y'all see some of the cats in that draft class. You know what I'm saying? And there's guys who I'm like just finding out about now, like in full detail. But like some of the guys like, AJ DeBansa, Cameron Boozer, Darren Peterson, Kareem Lopez, you know what I'm saying? Elijah Arenas. There's some dogs, some guys that like they all like number one scorer type of players. And it's rare that you see a draft like that has like just so many guys who could be, a team's number one. So I think that is an interesting trade, needless to say. Now, I think the likelihood of that trade happening is pretty low. One, given how beloved, Trey and Herb are. And I think President Dumars is going to take that into account. Then also the fact that they're both young and they are, steadily progressing. Obviously, like Trey Murphy this past year really broke out on another level, led the team in scoring. Herb Jones, as we all know, was an all-NBA defense first team last year and still has an incredibly high ceiling as a, versatile, multifaceted defender and distributor and occasional floor spacer. I would be sad to make this trade, but looking at it, right, if certain, moves are made, then it might position us differently in the future. But a lot of people who were commenting under this said that they would like the Grizzlies would either likely need to add a guy like Gigi Jackson, who, I think has a lot of that Swiss Army knife potential, but in a bigger role could actually be a starter, you know what I'm saying? More draft picks. So, either a pick from this year or pick next year or 2027, but likely. And then or add Jalen Wells, who, second round pick and just made the all rookie first team this year. So hats off to him. So I also see where people are saying like, yeah, but the Pelicans, right? We gonna ask for more. If you want Herb and you want Trey, we gonna need more than that, respectfully. You know what I'm saying? It's not to downplay Desmond Bane's talent, but we're gonna need a little more than that, given that we might be giving up two guys who could be franchise cornerstones. So, it would be a trade that nothing's impossible. I don't see this one happening just because of just that double whammy of giving them up both. And I feel like the Grizzlies would have to have a lot more. But who knows? Let's not ignore the Grizzlies in any way, shape, or form. Stay tuned, though. Stay tuned. All right. Next trade that I found that was very interesting. So, should we trade for Malik Monk? Now, this was an article on Sports Illustrated by Will Zimmerly. This was for the Sacramento Kings, Sports Illustrated. And very interesting trade as well. Now, again, Mr. Jones, our guy, Herb. Oh, it would hurt me to see Herb go. But in this trade, the Kings would get Herb Jones, and we would get Malik Monk. We would get the Kings' 42nd pick for this upcoming year, so a second-round pick, and we would get a first-round pick from 2027. Now, this trade, I think even less likely because it's like, I like Malik Monk. I think he's a great spark plug scorer. He had some big moments with the Kings, especially in their playoff run a couple years ago. But that's not even close to enough for Herb. I'm sorry. Maybe someone might say, well, you're overrating Herb. Maybe. But I told y'all, Herb has Tayshaun Prince type potential, right? And Tayshaun Prince was a starter on 6 straight Eastern Conference appearances, and in the 2004 championship, and was an integral piece to why the Pistons won in '04, and was a big reason why Kobe had his worst finals of his whole career. Now, granted, yes, there was a lot of dysfunction going on with the Lakers, but the Pistons capitalized on the opportunity. But I look at Herb as the type of guy that is going to aid and help a major and big run. With Malik Monk, I think he's incredibly exciting. I've loved watching him since he was at Kentucky. Him and De'Aaron, that backcourt was tough. They was nice. But I'm thinking about, okay, again, we have young, type of scorer bench bucket guys. Brandon Boston, Antonio Reeves, Jordan Hawkins. And then that's not to forget, right? We still don't know what we're doing with CJ. Got to see how DeJounte comes back from his injury. So, and then, you still got Jose Alvarado. Granted, he's not the scorer like any of those guys, but he's going to get significant minutes because of his ability as a defender, as a hustle type of player, and his ability to be a distributor when called upon, even though he's not like a traditional, floor general point. He can do it, but he's more of a energy, speedy Gonzalez type of player. You know what I'm saying? And if basketball-wise, I keep saying it, but like a J.J. Barea. But J.J. Barea, big part of why those Mavericks won in 2011. So a lot to consider, a lot to take into account. But I don't feel like we pull the trigger on that trade. There's more likelihood with the Grizzlies and being like, let's increase that asking price. The Kings are going to need a lot more. Second round picks is great. Sometimes they turn into stars, but most of those guys don't even make it to the first contract. So that, and then the 2027 class, that one doesn't have the same amount of projected standouts. Now, I'm not going to sit and act like I know that class like off the top of my head, but from different stuff I've read so far, people are saying that 2025, 2026, very strong. 2027 right now is still figuring itself out. And it makes sense. You know what I'm saying? Those kids, a lot of given how much the rage is for freshman players, right? These are kids who are going to be seniors in high school next year, and then they're going to go on to college. So there's still some stuff being figured out. I know there are guys who are, getting there, but it does not, because like of how close the 2026 guys who are going to be freshmen this upcoming year for 2025, 2026, all the attention's on them. And then obviously 2025, that season for 24, 25 just happened. So we kind of have like a roadmap of like who those guys are going to be, who those top players are going to be. So that's why I say it's always nice to get extra picks, and that would be nice to have more, leverage, more youth, and also like just the leverage of like, you have a player like Malik Monk, who is still young enough, old enough to, know his role in the league, and young enough to still have value as a trade chip. So I don't see it happening though, just because like they would have to get a lot more in order to get Herb. I mean, we would have to get a lot more to get Herb. I mean, to give up Herb. That's just the reality of it. Like, I can't see President Dumars, for pennies and chips on the dollar. No way. Got to come off the pretzel money. Sacramento. y'all gotta kind of talk like L.A. Oh, speaking of. Now this trade, a little bit more interesting as well. Just a bit. Now also similar circumstances, but slightly different result. So the Lakers are a team where they're trying to figure out if they're going to be a title contender or if they're going to be restarting things as well, right? As LeBron nears the twilight end of his career, and I think that makes it different with the Grizzlies and the Kings situation, because like the Grizzlies, they're like not quite to that elite status that everyone thought they was going to make, with that leap. And the Kings, they didn't necessarily, their spark didn't, I don't want to quote Jay and say they had a spark when they started and now they garbage, but they did kind of fall from top 10 to not being mentioned at all. So their path's a little murky. With the Lakers, though, all eyes is on them for one. You still have LeBron, who's still a top 10, at worst, top 15 player, even though, I think LeBron's still a top 10 player. Y'all let me know. But then they got Luka now, who Luka's, the baton, the keys to the Ferrari have been handed to him. But knowing Luka's own deficiencies and own play style, things that he has to work on, you need to have the right guys around him. And this trade, so the Lakers would get Trey from us and a 2030 second round pick. Then we would get Rui Hachimura, Dalton Connect, the number 55 pick this year, this upcoming draft, and then a 2031 first round pick. Now, that's crazy to me because I'm like, 2031, like, you realize, like, the most of the guys that are going to be drafted high from that class, just with the way that, the trend of drafting has gone, like, them dudes not even, if them dudes even in middle school, like, what are we talking about here, man? What are we talking about? Because it's like, man, that's 6 years away. That's a whole 6 years away. So that's some time. But who knows, right? Who knows by then who's going to be the big fish in the pond, and there might be a generational stud. So you just never know. But we will get, us getting more players and more picks. I think that's where the likelihood is higher, just because of, what type of value you're getting back. Now, for the Lakers, I think the Lakers kind of win this in the sense of, Trey Murphy is the perfect number 3 guy with Luka and Bron right now, and then maybe he could develop into that. He could develop into that number 2 next to Luka. You know what I'm saying? Like his ceiling is high enough to still wonder the leaps and bounds that he's going to take with his game. You know what I'm saying? We have seen the constant improvement, and it's time for the rest of the league, in my opinion. But I could see the Lakers really being excited about taking that on. You know what I'm saying? Getting a young wing who can play on both ends well, create a shot, space the floor, because does just everything that you want out of a 6'7", 6'8" small forward, who can also play about 3 positions and defend multiple. So, and then Dalton Connect on the other hand too, right? And it also depends on, because I think Rui would fit into the timeline now, as like a high energy, athletic glue guy. And me and Rui are the same graduating year, so he's 26. Maybe New Orleans believes that there's still more for Rui to accomplish, or having a player like him who plays physical, who plays above the rim, can be both a 3 and a 4, but can space the floor. You can utilize him in a lot of different ways. But then Dalton Connect still has a pretty high ceiling, because when he was out there playing and getting consistent minutes, he was like a really good bench player for the Lakers. He was their best rookie. And I think that trade getting nixed, Knicks. Oh man, shout out to those Knicks though. Great season for y'all, and it's gonna be a very exciting NBA Finals. Little sidebar. But Dalton Connect, we don't know what he can become. You know what I'm saying? He was, a great player in college, a little bit older, but came in very polished. And what's to say with more opportunity he doesn't show out even more? 3-point shooting was an issue for the team, which is why, I could very well see Desmond Bane with Malik Monk. The Kings are going to need a whole lot more. But Dalton Connect is a great 3-point shooter himself. And he also can create off the dribble. He's not a total, stiff out there. He's not a gargoyle. He can put the ball on the ground if needed. And he's incredibly young in juxtaposition to, well, actually, no, never mind. Never mind. I scratch that. But he's still young. Point is, he's still young. He was a rookie this past year. So there's still untapped potential. 55th pick, who knows, right? Who knows? But so that trade is probably the most, just because as far as it was tangible. And I got a shout out to Jed Katz who put that together on the Lakers Sports Illustrated page. Shout out. That that trade of the three is probably the most likely, and because of the one, there's already just a tangible offer at hand, and then two players for one. However, are those two players better than that one? Personally, I don't think so. I think Trey Murphy has a higher ceiling than both of them, but I'm not in charge, right? And again, with everybody being untouchable, that's going to ask a lot of questions. And also looking at teams like OKC and Indy who are in the finals, right, this year. Hats off to both of them. They built their teams through the draft, through acquiring picks, through building their assets. Definitely other teams are going to be paying great attention in mind to how this series goes. And that's usually how it goes. You look at different teams when they win, and you see what is the ingredient to their success. Why do they win? And a team like the Lakers is not necessarily known to build from the ground up. It's been a while since they have, right? They tend to, strike. They tend to strike pretty big on, top tier free agents, the allure and the luster, the history and the market. It's just all too resist. It's all too much to resist, for a lot of people and a lot of players. So it makes it's a different situation. But I think Dalton Connect, he could be, he definitely probably wants a fresh start. It probably rubbed him wrong that, not only did he get included into a trade and then it got nixed only because Mark Williams failed his physical, but when the playoffs came around, he got next to no burn off the bench. I was wondering, I'm like, JJ, you my guy, and I know you really know ball, but y'all could use some spacing out there. Y'all could use someone who is deadly from the perimeter, but if worst come to worst, you throw a defender out there to try to close him out. He can put the ball on the floor. He is not a total, he's not a total stiff. He's not just a standstill type of player. And then Rui already, Rui's been playing. Rui's a veteran, but he's young, right? He's young, but he still has ability that hasn't been fully tapped into. Now there might be some positional stuff that with him, and if Zion is kept, I'm hoping there might be some positional logjam with that, as far as with their kind of bruising styles as players. But we got to just see how everything plays out. Ultimately, no one is safe. No one is untouchable. So, food for thought. Y'all let me know. But yeah, of all these trades, I think the Lakers one is the most likely, personally. Now, the last trade, this is again involving our guy Trey. Honestly, Trey got traded a lot in this video. And Trey, if you're watching this video, my brother, I don't want you to get traded. I'm hoping you're a Pelican, but it is not in the cards, of mine. I don't control it. But there was some interesting stuff. So this was with the Nuggets. Now this is a total like wild, kind of like throwing some at the wall, hoping it sticks, stoking the fire a bit. You know what I'm saying? Playing with fire here. Now, an old video recently resurfaced of Trey Murphy at the All-Star game this past year, and it was him calling Nikola Jokic the best player in the world. And Jokic has an argument. You know what I'm saying? He definitely does have an argument for best player in the world. So it was talking about the potential prospect of Trey Murphy coming over to Denver. Now, in my opinion, there wasn't like a full-blown trade, but shout out to Will Desperate who wrote this article. But this was interesting this was semi-interesting, but not. But it was like saying that likely the two players that would be parted with would be Christian Braun and Michael Porter Jr. And Christian Braun, to me, is a player who I think has like a lot of potential, of all-star potential, and maybe more, right? He really broke out this year. You know what I'm saying? He really is an efficient player, knows how to pick his spots well, can create off the dribble, can space the floor, is athletic, plays tough. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, when I saw him and James Harden go at it, I was like, okay, youngin, I see you. You know what I'm saying? He at no point was backing down. And obviously, granted, this is not James Harden when he was on the Rockets, but James Harden is still a, 20-point game scorer, been in the league for some time. You know what I'm saying? He's got some age and experience on Christian, but Christian wasn't backing down, and he was going at him as well. And I like seeing young players do that with the, and it's kind of crazy because it's like, man, I remember when James Harden was at ASU. You know what I'm saying? But there's gonna be a kid that's gonna say, but I remember when Christian Braun was at Kansas. You know what I'm saying? So that's just, so is life. But I think that trade, I think that especially if the Pelicans, if we trade CJ, Christian Braun could potentially be a shooting guard of the future. He very well could be. I think he's got a lot of potential, and in a bigger role could put up even crazier numbers. Now, some people also do wonder, okay, but the Nuggets did have a very offensive friendly system with Jokic, with Jamal Murray, with MPJ, with Aaron Gordon. You know what I'm saying? Like they just had a very functional structure that one could come in and thrive in. And, Mike Malone's offenses score a lot of points. But I think Christian Braun is the real deal. You know what I'm saying? I think the kid's got game, and he would do well if given a bigger role. That's my personal opinion. Now, we have to see that take place and happen, but anything is possible, but I think it's very possible. But Michael Porter Jr., man, this one is harder because, right, and I've said before in video, right, I graduated 2017, so Michael Porter Jr. was the best player of my high school year. And, like, watching him in high school, like, what I'm saying, simultaneously to being in school at the same time as him, we the same age, like, I thought this dude was gonna be like the next KD, real rap. Like just as far as the size, the skill, the scoring ability, the ability to create from any spot, and his potential is so frustrating because he has his moments where like he really takes it up. He's on a nuclear, but he's such a shot first player that it makes it hard because if you pass it to him, you're likely not going to get the ball back, and he's likely going to shoot the ball. And that confidence is great to have. That confidence is absolutely great to have. But when it comes at the detriment of the team, it comes at the detriment of the way that your roster is built, that's when there's problems. That's when you have to step back and say, you know what? Maybe this is not a winning formula for success. Just maybe. Just maybe. And obviously, obviously, I don't want to see Trey Murphy get traded. I don't. That's the summary of the whole video. I don't want to see Trey Murphy or Herb Jones get traded, but unfortunately, right, this is just active and prevalent talk that is going around. All very speculatory, but it just got to be covered just because like it's related to what might potentially happen. But perhaps Michael Porter Jr. Now, personally, I think that back injury unfortunately sealed his fate. I don't know if he's ever going to be that same player that he was coming out of high school. Because I really feel like coming out of high school, if he had gotten to play his college year at Missouri fully healthy, he likely would have been the first pick. You know what I'm saying? Just a fully healthy, with his size, with his scoring ability, you know what I'm saying? I think he would have been the first pick. But that kind of, and he was, like, in most projected mock drafts prior to that injury, if you remember 2017, 2018 time, I do because, you know what I'm saying, that's the draft that I was in my freshman year in college, which that's wild to think about, you know what I'm saying? I graduated college 3 years ago. I was originally class of 21. Just a little backstory on me. But like, MPJ was seen as a must star. He was seen as a superstar caliber type of player. He was seen as a borderline generational prospect. Not with the same fanfare as guys like Andrew Wiggins and Jabari Parker, but the hype for him was Major. Don't get it twisted. You know what I'm saying? A lot of people were saying he looks like, the next in line after like guys like BI as like the next KD, but bigger, right? The pro body and, you know what I'm saying, the refinement in his game. I don't want us to give up Trey, but I do think Christian Braun would fit very well, especially if at shooting guard we get rid of CJ and we don't feel like Brandon Boston, Jordan Hawkins, or Antonio Reeves. If those guys, we don't feel like any of those guys are starters or those guys are ready to step up and ready for that moment. Christian Braun has shown he is ready for that moment, in my opinion. And MPJ has had his moments where he has shown that. It's just inconsistent with him. And I say this as someone who still thinks highly of his talent, but I don't know. It's all tough. And this is, again, all speculation. There's a possibility that none of these trades happen, that no one gets moved. But we got to talk about it. We got to, keep it honest. We'd be doing y'all a disservice if we wasn't honest and talking about these trades. But yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see what happens moving forth. Again, a lot is going to be predicated on who wins this finals, what happens in free agency, and what happens in the draft. Those three things, whatever order you want to place it at, depending on how you look at things structurally, when a team is trying to build itself and build in a better direction. So we're gonna see. But a lot is in store, a lot to look forward to. So make sure to like, share, and subscribe to Pelicans Daily through Fan Arch. Make sure to follow Fan Arch on all social media. You know what I'm saying? They got a great platform with great content, a lot of great people who are involved and a part of it. So make sure to go and show love. You know what I'm saying? Like I was saying with this video. Like, share, subscribe, tell a friend. Y'all want to, tap in with me, follow me on the gram at Dylan, DYLAN _ Bruton, BRUTON 10. You know what I'm saying? If you want to DM me that I had some great takes today, or you want to DM me that my takes was terrible, you have full reign. I've really been appreciating reading the comments and seeing your different thoughts, you know what I'm saying? And just being able to really feel the energy. It's been genuine. It's been nothing but love. So I really appreciate y'all. But that is going to be my time. Y'all stay blessed. Y'all stay tuned for more. An exciting NBA Finals is upon us, the battle of the small market, and it's time for a small market like us to get to that stage as well. So stay tuned for more Stay tuned for more Pelicans content. You know what I'm saying? Stay tuned, because much more is on the way, much more to come, especially with everyone untouchable. Oh yeah, it's about to get crazy this summer. But stay blessed, stay amazing.